I welcome you back to another important lecture. And today we begin with one of the very important topic. And the topic is entitled as a transport in plant. And by the transport in plant, we will be saying that how come the water and the ions and the sucrose and the amino acid they would be transported from one part of the plant to another part of the plant. So we simply see that what makes a transport system in the plant. So what we have to be seeing is that the transport system of the plant that basically is made up of the bundles, and these bundles we regard them as a vascular bundles, we say. And whenever the word vascular bundle is coming, in biology. So by the vascular bundle, we mean the phloem vessels that we have in the plants and the xylem vessels that we have got in the plants. The phloem vessels that we have, they would be moving or they would be translocating. So here you focus on the word in context of the phloem is translocation, and by that what we mean is that the plant they would be moving the sucrose and the amino acids. And on the other way around, when we talk about the xylem vessels, so these xylem vessels, they would be moving the water and the ions in the plant. And for the transport in plant, what we assess is that this would be a kind of a transport, and that transport is regarded as the bulk transport. And by the bulk transport, what we mean is that whenever the water and the ions and the sucrose and the amino acid, they would be moved in their respective xylem and the phloem vessels, so they would move in a continuous way, and the material they would be carried in a more amount. So this is why this transport of the plant is the bulk transport. So further, if we proceed, the idea would be that since we are concerned about the transportation in case of the plant, so we have to be justifying us that how come or why do these plants they need the transport system in them. Now, what we know is that the plants they have multiple organs in them. We have got the leaves in them, then we have the stems in them, and then at the bottom, embedded or present in the soil, we have got the roots of these plants. So the situation is that every organ of the plant they are doing their own role. Like if I were to talk about the leaves, so we know that the leaves they photosynthesize and they would make the glucose and the sucrose and the amino acids in them. But these leaves they are in the need of the ions, and these ions they are the magnesium ion that are required by the leaves to be making the chlorophyll in the chloroplast, and they also require the nitrate ions which the leaves they cannot make themselves, but rather than they would rely on the roots that it should be absorbing the water and the ions inclusive of the magnesium and the nitrate ions, and they should be carried from the roots to the leaves. Now, if I talk about the roots on the other way around, so they are rendering the function of absorbing the water and ions, but they themselves, since they do not have any chloroplasts in them, so they would not photosynthesize. But still, since they are living, so they would always be in the need of the glucose molecule. So for glucose, they are dependent on the leaves, and the leaves are dependent on the roots for availing the water and obtaining the ions as well. So what I mean to say is from the leaves, the glucose, the sucrose, and the amino acid would be transported to the roots, and from the roots, the water and ions they would be moving toward the leaves. So this is why there has to be an important situation where we need to have the transport system in the plant. Now, the idea from the paper point of view is that we must be very much clear that how come these vascular bundles that we have in the plants so they are how they are arranged in the roots and in the stem and the leaves. And this is one of the major thing that is asked in the exam. Now, if I quickly tell you about in case of the roots, so overall what we understand is that the vascular bundles that we have in the roots, so they would include the epidermis, then there would be coming up of the tissue, and that tissue is the cortex tissue, and it would have the cortical cells in them. Then out of the epidermis there would be emerging of the cells, and these cells they are the root hair cells, and they project outward or they grow outward from the epidermal cells, and then among the vascular bundles we have the xylem and the phloem in case of the roots as well. So if I were to see you my handmade diagram, so here you see that on the outside what we have got is the layer of epidermis, and in the epidermis each individual cell that I am denoting with the blue marking, so this cell individual cell is epidermal cell. And out of this epidermal cell, the cell would elongate and would protrude outward and would go into the soil. So this is what we refer to this as a root hair cell. And then at the center of the root, we have got these vascular bundles. And in the vascular bundles, the situation that I have here, like this part of within the center of the root. So these are the xylem. These are the phloem with us. And at the center, this part that we see, so this would be the xylem with us, and overall, this here we are making the vascular bundle. Now the situation is that what we have got in between the vascular bundles that we have in the center and the epidermis that we have got on the outside of the root. So in this area we have got these cells, or we have a tissue, and the name of the tissue is the cortical tissue, and every cell that we have got over here, so this is the cortical cell. Overall, we also call this layer as a cortex as well. So if I were to show you another diagram of the same root here, root that we have got with us. Root is an organ, and the root hair cell is a cell that we are basically taking out of the epidermal cells here. So for this knee diagram, you see that again I have got on the outside is this epidermis, and then at the center we have these vascular bundles, and between the epidermis and the vascular bundles again we have got the cortex here, and these are the root hair cells. So overall, this is the root, and these projections that are getting out from the roots of these are the root hair cells. Now, moving onward, here you have to just keep one thing in mind that in case of the roots, the vascular bundles they are lying at the center of the roots. Now, for the stems, if we try to see that as in case of the root, we have the epidermis on the outside. So again, in the stem, we would have this epidermis coming on the outside, like this is epidermis with us. And then in the roots at the center, we had the vascular bundle, but in case of the stem, we have got some uh, part, and that is referred to as a pith. And then we would have the vascular bundles. And these vascular bundles, they line to the peripheries, like to the boundary of the stem or near to the epidermis. And we will see in a while that how come the vascular bundle, inclusive of the xylem and the phloem, they are arranged here. But again, you see that in between this epidermis that I have and the vascular bundles that I have, this area that we have got coming here, so this again would be the cortex with us. Now, the situation would be that where does here in this vascular bundle the xylem and the phloem lies? So that part of the vascular bundle that is toward the epidermis. So here we have the phloem, and that part of the vascular bundle which is centered or which is projected toward the pith. So it would have the xylem here. And between the xylem and the phloem, we have got another important area that is coming over here. So this is what we refer to this as the cambium. So I would take this part out and would show you that what I'm talking at the moment. So here when we proceed further, so you see this is the same thing that we have got over here. So here you see that this part that I am highlighting at the moment, so this is the phloem and it would be carrying the sucrose and the amino acid. When I'm going downward, so this part that I have over here, so this would be the xylem, and this xylem is facing the pith, and or this would be projected toward the center of the stem, and the phloem you see it would be lying outside. Now the situation is that what is the role of the cambium that we have here? So you know that as time would pass and the stem of the plant, this would increase in diameter, or this would show a growth, and that growth would mean that we are supposed to be increasing the number of the cells in these vascular bundles. So the idea is that this cambium that we have in the xylem and the phloem, it would be undergoing the mitosis and it would be producing the new daughter cells. And these daughter cells, they would be pushed into the phloem and they would be pushed into the xylem. So as a result of that, the stem girth or the stem diameter or the width, it would increase in size. And thanks partly to the presence of this cambium that we have got in between the xylem that we have here and the phloem that we have here. So the idea is only that in the exam, this part which is toward the cortex, this would be phloem, and that is projected toward the center. This is xylem, and in between them we have got the cambium. Now moving onward, if I were to show you another knee diagram, so you see that this again is the epidermis of the stem, and here we have the pith. Here is the vascular bundle coming. Now this part toward the epidermis, this is phloem, and this part which is projected toward the center. So this is xylem, and in between them we again have the cambium. Now further we have to be understanding is that where in the leaves these vascular bundles, the xylem and the phloem, they are located. So we have seen earlier in the nutrition in the plant chapter, the structure of the leaf I have taught you people. So here you see at the top we have the cuticle. Immediately below the cuticle, we have the upper epidermis, and below the upper epidermis, we have got these long cylindrical cells. And these long cylindrical cells, they are the palisade mesophyll cells. When I go downward to the palisade mesophyll cells, so here we have the spongy mesophyll cells. Why they were referred to as spongy? Because we have multiple air spaces in them. And in these air spaces, we have these xylem. Okay, so they are basically represented with the help of some big boxes coming here. And immediate in close association with this, so these are the phloem. So how you have to highlight it in the exams that those spaces in the spongy mesophyll cells, they would have this vascular bundle coming like this. The big boxes, they are the xylem, and the small boxes that we have, so they would be the phloem with us. So this is how the vascular bundles they look in case of the leaves. Now, if I were to show you another neat diagram, so you see again, at the very top, we have this cuticle. Now, here would be the cells of the paraepidermis, and here would be coming up of the palisade mesophyll cells. Here we have the vascular bundles, and these bluish boxes that you see at the moment. So this is the xylem tissue, and when I go on the downward, so this is what is the phloem with us. So overall, this is the vascular bundle that we have got in case of the leaf. So I hope you would be clear with that. Why do we require the transport in plant, and how come the vascular bundles that in term of the xylem and the phloem, we have got them arranged in the leaves, the stems, and the roots.